My name is Mike Latronico, and I've been a plumber for over 40 years, and I'm right now living in the state of Florida, but originally from New York. And we basically are tankless installers, repair, and troubleshooters. For all you ladies and gentlemen out there inspecting homes, this is like the new sliced white bread, as I call it. They're being installed everywhere. I mean, I was just down in New York for a wedding, and I saw tons of homes with tanklesses on it. But because it's a new rage out there, there's a lot of people that are installing these things and other things that really don't know what they're doing, but they want to get into business because it's very good money. So we originally, when I spoke, I don't know if any of you heard from the first Zoom thing that I did. I was doing predominantly Renai, and I had a channel that I did now for 4 years called the Renai Guy. But because I was getting so many questions on Navion and other tanklesses, I switched the channel to that tankless guy. So I can show and explain and do my mock-up installs for other things that would benefit the homeowners and the trade, not just a Renai product. So let me get this. All right. So tankless heaters, as you know, are inside and outside. I only do gas type heaters, propane and natural. I don't do any electric. It's just that they just don't work well down here at all, unless you put a very good filter filtering the water before it goes in. Other than that, they last about 2 years. So as you can see with the far right pictures, you have an interior tankless and an exterior. And then we're now into other interior, exterior tanklesses. So with these installs, as you can see, the picture on the left is what they call a non-condensing unit. So it is about 85% efficient. It doesn't require either, PVC pipe. It requires a specific pipe, and I'll get to more photos with the terminations outside of the building. But with the center and right photo, those are condensing tanklesses. They're very high efficient. Let me get back here to that. The center picture here, that is a Navion condensing. And as you can see, with a large garage, you do not need to put 2 pipes outside of the building. And I'm going to get to the venting right now. So here we have venting going outside the building. The right pipe is a condensing pipe. It's just 2-inch PVC with a screen in it. And that would be the center picture and the right picture. As you can see, it does a center pipe that goes up and out. That's what you want to watch for, that thing is going out of the building. And if it's a large enough room or a garage, really a garage, you're allowed to use room air for combustion. Wrong way, sorry about that. All right, so we have our venting here. You have we're going to go with the far right for starters. The most important thing with that right is the screen. The next picture to the left of that one is the proper way for the vent from, wrong way, sorry. From that left tankless to be terminated outside the wall. Why? Look at the left picture. You see there's white showing. If you go to inspect a home, now, this is what they call Eubank venting. It can be used on a multitude of different tanklesses. It's made from a Norwegian company, and they make it so that it can be adapted to different tanklesses. But if you see any of that white showing, give it a gig, because most likely that has been deteriorated by the sun. The black that you see on the left picture and then that third picture from the left is UV protected, and so is the thimble. Any of that white pipe, probably within 1 to 2 years, would start getting cracks in it. By 3 to 4 years, that white pipe would be just like pieces. So any of that white, that's not good. The picture next to it is a vertical roof penetration. And that's exactly how you need to see it. So when you get up on that roof and you look, the way, and again, this is Eubank Venting, so it could be from a Rinnai, it could be from a Navion, it could be from a Noritz. It's the venting that's very important, that none of that white is showing. So now I'm going to show you some, again, I apologize, a new computer. Okay, now we have photos of problems and improper venting. So the photo on the left is in a closet. The unit was burned out because of it not getting the proper air. So it's in a closet, it's taking room air, plus the vent is improperly attached. The center picture and the picture on the right, as you can see, the picture on the right and the picture in the center are both from 2 different angles. You can see the tankless down there. That pipe is what they call concentric pipe. So that pipe there, and then the pipe, say, on the left, and that pipe again on the left is a pipe within a pipe, as you can see from that picture. They had the roof done over, and they pulled the vent up to put the new flashing. And when they pushed it down, it never got back into, because that piece on the top needs to be in the piece on the bottom. You probably will find this in numerous installations, even if the tankless was downstairs in the garage. If they got a new roof, it's going to be a sign that this thing has been separated. Because for starters, even with the little tiny hole that you see above the red line, that was pulled out from the little 1/2-inch screw that's provided. So if you see this, that tankless is pretty much shot. It's been sucking in the insulation and dust for God knows how long, and it's gotten into the heat exchanger and given you most likely a problem. Okay, so
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Why don't PVC plumbing vent stacks deteriorate like the water heater combustion vent stacks?
Well, for starters, let's get to the tankless, and so I'll explain. That tankless in the center and the tankless on the right, and again, the tankless in the center, they're 97, 98% efficient. So if you literally, we actually test. Why I take a meter every now and then and see how much CO is coming out. It's like not even 2%. We have had our face in front of it, and you really don't even feel the heat coming out of it. But let me get to that. Let me get back to this picture here. What's very important is, you see in that center picture needs to be schedule 40. That vent pipe, that PVC pipe, needs to be like the red letter. Now, yes, they buy it at Home Depot and Lowe's. It's got a black lettering on it. But from a supply house, that vent pipe, that PVC pipe, is the pressure the pipe they use for large lawn sprinkler systems or water piping, where the other lettering is foam core, that will deteriorate very fast. So on the water heater pipes, a lot of times they use foam core because they're plumbers, and that's what they have on their trucks. Here, you need to use Schedule 40. So if you can look at the pipe on like either one of those condensing units, you need to see that it says Schedule 40 pressure. You can use plumbing fittings. As you can see, that's a regular plumbing elbow because that's not foam core. And the reason I like using the plumbing fittings is it has a better sweep in it than a pressure fitting. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
No, no problem. All right. So now, when you go to a site, a home, you can actually look up on, I'm going to get to the, how do you tell how old? Let me get back here to one other couple of pictures here. There it is. Okay. These two photos basically show the one on the left is a Rinnai and the one on the right is a Navion. Now, Rinnai is the #1 brand, Navion is #2 brand. So in those photos, on a Rinnai left, so looking at the unit on the left-hand side, there is a model and serial number. As you can see, it's LH.BA-090003. You can look up and see the age of the tankless if they don't provide you with the age. On Navion, it's on the right side looking at the tankless. And you have a model number, and as you can see, the serial number is really long. So you can basically look up, like on Navion's website, type in the serial number, and if it was registered, they'll give you the date of installation. If not, they will give you the date it was manufactured. And they usually sit in the supply house for only maybe a month, if that. Now they're going out like hotcakes. So that will give you the rating plates will give you the gas type, the model number, the serial number, and also with Rinnai that there's an REU number that tells you what state and what supplier got it. Where the barcode on the bottom for Navion below the serial number, that's what gives you the state and location that it was sold in.
Hey, Mike.
Okay, so yes.
How can you tell condensing units from non-condensing units?
We're going to go right to those pictures because I'm actually
Okay.
going to. All right. So, all right, those three pictures right there. On a non-condensing unit, you will only find the big 5-inch pipe that's on the left picture, or the third picture from the left. That shows that it's most likely a non-condensing unit. But if you, if you go to look at the bottom of the unit where the water pipes are, you're going to find the cold water, the hot water, a gas pipe, a relief pipe, and then you're going to find a 1/2-inch pipe, most likely either going to a floor drain or outside the house. That will tell you, see, on some units, if you look at this Rinnai unit in the middle, where that 2-inch pipe is coming up and over, there's a black adapter. That adapter could come off, and you could use that 5-inch pipe, but it's different. On Navion, that's the center one, they don't give you the option of a large Eubank concentric venting. It's only 2 pipes. So on a Navion, if you see 2 pipes, it's condensing. If you see a single pipe, it's non-condensing, so the big pipe. But look at the right picture. That's an exterior unit, no vent. That's where you're going to go and look for that little 1/2-inch pipe. It's not going to be anything bigger on any unit. And I've installed pretty much all of them, but then just stuck with Rinnai and Navion. It's a 1/2-inch pipe, most likely between, like, if you look center and just to the left, or all the way to the left, you're going to see a 1/2-inch pipe, or sometimes it's just going to be a plastic male fitting, because I go to a lot of jobs where we go to service a unit and the installer never put a condensate drain on it. So that's something, and again, you're going to have to look for. If you see an open pipe, a 1/2-inch pipe, that means that there's no drain, and it's just been letting water just trickle out all over to everything. But if you see that pipe, you'll be able to determine that it's a condensing unit. On Navion, and you can write this all down. On Navion, if it says NPN, it's non-condensing. If it says NPE, it's condensing. On Rinnai, if it says V or RL, it's non-condensing. If it says RU or RUR, it's condensing. Okay? All right, let's stick here at this picture. Something that you need to ask if there isn't something affixed to, say, the electrical panel or somewhere in the garage, just like the termite inspector puts on. I put a service record on the inside or next to the unit to show when I have gone there, we have gone there to service the unit. Now, you can ask or find out, either from maybe the real estate agent or if the homeowner is home, what's the age of the unit and if there's any service done on it. So if you look at the far left picture, and on all tankless heaters, you're going to have an inlet filter. Now, that inlet filter catches debris. Now, that photo I actually chose because it is the worst filter I ever removed from a tankless heater, and that tankless was 4 years old, no service. So that's going to determine how much the unit has been torn up by whatever water is going in. Now, even with, and when we get to water filters, even when we get into the high-end filters, you still need to service the unit because particulates get into the heat exchanger. And I say the heat exchanger is like your kidneys. And if anybody knows, if you get a kidney stone, how much pain you're in, that's what you're doing to these heat exchanger inside the unit. And if you now look at the second picture from the left, that is a burn mark due to the heat exchanger being so clogged that the flame is not able to heat the water and is causing heat to generate and heat up the shell of the tankless. Now, if you go to any tankless, you look on the left and the right, but first you looking at the tankless, you look on the right, because all tanklesses, they're heat exchangers. are installed more to the right than the left because of the piping. They want to get the feed and the hot water piping down. So that's where you'll see, you could even might even look like a black dot. That, now I don't know if you guys remove the panel, the front covers, to look in them, or if you're just testing to see if they fire and operate. But if you see any discoloration on the right, there's a problem. If you look on the left and see discoloration, there is a major problem. And that is due to lack of maintenance. Now, if you go to the right unit on an exterior, there could be two reasons. One, it could be that critters and bugs and leaves have gotten in there, and we're going to get to a picture of a really horrible outdoor installation. Well, bushes that are in front of it. But again, any discoloration on the right, problem. Anything on the left, a major problem. So see if you can find out what service has been done on a residential tankless. It should be done every year. On a commercial tankless, if it's like a restaurant or say a bed and breakfast, it should be done every quarter.
Hey, Mike.
So, yes.
What is the service for tankless water heater? Can you define that? What gets done?
Yes. Okay. Well, I have actually on my channel, there is at least 5 videos showing what it is. But basically what we do is we bring, it's a service kit with a pump, hoses, and a solution. Now, we just happen to use this Flow Aid, but there's other ones on the market. Or you could use distilled white vinegar, 4 gallons of distilled white vinegar. So we mix up the vinegar or the solution in the bucket. And on the bottom of the tankless, if you notice where the clear pipe and the red pipe go in, there's a valve kit. And on that valve kit is service ports. You shut off the 2 red and blue handles that feed the tankless, and you put your hoses on the service port. Plug the pump in, and it pushes the solution in through the cold, through the heat exchanger, back out, back into the bucket. Basically, the same thing your Keurig coffee pot tells you, depending on how much coffee you drink, you have to descale it. It's the same thing. Like I tell my customers, you got a $220 Keurig, you got a $2,000 Keurig sitting on your wall. You determine if you want it serviced. See, some people just don't want to spend the money, and they think, oh, yeah, it'll last for 20 years, but you got to take care of it. You got to change your oil in your car, you got to service these things. So that's basically what a service is. And it takes about anywhere from about 45 minutes to an hour to do it, depending on the unit. Of course, the unit on the left is a little faster. The unit on the right, there's a filter in there. There's a couple of other things that we need to check if the parameters are set correctly. So the one on the left is about, say, 40 minutes or so. The one in the center and the one on the right takes about an hour. Okay? All right, let me get to, all right, so we touched on the venting, and there's the serial numbers again.
Oh, about the serial number, Mike. Do any of the tankless manufacturers put in the date code where we can just look at the serial number and figure out?
No, okay. No. On water heaters, well, I'm going to get to water heaters very soon. Water heaters, a lot of them, especially, see, A.O. Smith and State are one company now. So you can actually look on the bottom right hand of the rating plate, there is a manufacture date. And again, they don't sit pretty much long in supply houses. But again, it goes by the serial number. And on the older A.O. Smiths, the first 2 numbers were the year. The third number was, or third to fourth number was the day, and the 5th and 6th number was the month. That's how you could tell. But they stopped that and went to the newer ones. And it's about 5-6 years now. They went to a manufacture date. But like Ream and Rudd and GE, those you really have to go to their website and type in the serial number, and it will give you a date. Now, I know a lot of plumbers, they write the date right on the top on one of the warning stickers. They put a date of install. I see that all the time. So you might, and I know probably a lot of you have seen it too, so that's good. But we just don't do this on the tanklesses, just that there's really no place that I like to do it, at least. All right, so let me get to we'll go here. All right. So now you, when you're going now in the house to look at the tank, like see the operation, all right, there should be a controller. So you have the two controllers on the left, then you have the controller in the center, the controller third from the left. Those controllers are either going to be just basic controllers like the ones on the left, or they're going to be the recirc controller. That's where we put in a tankless heater that either there's a third pipe because the house has a return line or a recirc line that makes the water go faster at the farthest fixture. Could be the master bathroom, maybe the kids' bathroom. Sometimes it's the kitchen. So if you look at the second picture from the left, that has a timer with highlighted squares that are telling the tankless heater when to turn the pump on. Or you might just see a basic controller that has a green light that says priority and 120, 130, 140, whatever the people want the installer to set it at. So those are the two basic controllers. Now, you probably on a lot of your inspections are going to look for the controller, and it was never installed, or it was installed inside of the carcass of the tankless outside. I have seen them mounted under the tankless. An exterior tankless is waterproof. The controller is not. So if you remove the doors, if you don't see a controller, it might be it was overlooked when the house was built. Now they're in a pickle, so they just put two wires to the two little screws and throw the thing inside the carcass, and the heat from the tankless is only tearing up the thing. So that's what you're going to look for as a controller. The two controllers the controllers on the left, the controller in the center are Rinnai. The controller third from the left is Navion. Navion's controllers pretty much are all the same. Rinnai has a few different. Now, the picture on the far right will pertain to pretty much all the tanklesses. What you see there is a Rinnai, but it's made by Grundfos. It is called the thermal bypass valve. So while you're doing your inspection, going through the bathrooms and looking for, your rotted pipe and stuff, and again, as a plumber, thank you, because I get a lot of business when you do home inspections, you are going to see that device, or one that is about 3 times the size, but still looking like that. So basically, it has the hot water coming in on the left and the cold water going back on the right. And then you have on the left and the right 2 pipes going up. That's feeding the faucet. What that's doing is it's not a mixing valve. So don't think it's a mixing valve for, something in the bathroom. What's that doing is it's actually taking the hot water on the left, letting it go through that thermal, now I'm saying that again, thermal bypass valve, back into the cold water, still allowing hot and cold to go up to this faucet. But when the thermally activated piece of metal in the middle reaches 105 degrees, it closes the bypass valve, sends pressure back to the tankless. The tankless senses it and shuts down. And if you look at the second picture from the left, that's what that timer is doing. And all you need to do is press timer on either one of the, or the third one, and it will turn the timer cycle on. On a Navion unit, it's got a waterproof controller on the panel outside. So they have just a little bit different, but it comes with a remote controller in the box so that it can be installed in the house, so that the homeowner doesn't need to go running outside to increase or decrease or do something with the pump cycle. Rinnai, you have to buy them separately, but they basically do the same thing. You're setting a time in 1 hour increments for Rinnai, 15-minute increments for Navion, and that will turn the pump cycle on through that system on the far right, which is called the thermal bypass valve. And again, you'll see them like that or larger. That's made by Grundfos, and pretty much all of the tankless companies, except Navion, use them. Navion designed and manufactures their own. That's cleanable, but it's about 3 times the size of it, and it doesn't take up much room at all. Okay, so that is the controllers that you will be looking at.
Hey, Mike.
Now, yes.
Do the manufacturers make those controllers built into the cabinets or anything? Or are they always going to be separate?
Nope. On an interior unit, well, you know what? Great question, because we're going to get back. Let me get back to the first pictures here. All right. Navion, on all of their units, have a built-in controller, even the exterior. Now, if you look at these 3 pictures right here, the picture on the left, that's a non-condensing. And as you can see, the controller is built into the bottom center of the cabinet. Now, if you look at the picture in the center and the right, there is a controller built into the bottom center, but that controller is only to set the PC board. You need a controller on, as you can see, I have them on the right and the left of the center and right picture. Now, if you look at this, the picture third from the left, that's a Navion. It's got a built-in controller, but it's got the controller that I can set everything. Then the picture on the far right there is a Navion. There's a controller behind that front door, but it also comes in the box, a separate controller to be put just on the other side of that wall, so that those people don't need to run outside and take a door off. So all of the higher end tanklesses come, or you need to buy a controller to operate it. And they should be mounted, if it's an external, outside. If it's an internal, you will see the controller on the door or mounted to one side if it's a Rinnai. Okay?
Thank you. The thermal bypass valve, is that to prevent scalding, or is it just for reducing that cold water plug?
No, what it's made for. It's this device right here. Let me get back to it. Okay, that device is made for when a house does not have a separate recirc line. A few tankless companies and I did a survey, and out of the entire United States, 95% of the homes do not have a recirc line. Commercial buildings, hotels, stuff like that need a recirc. So when you go in, you turn the water on, the water is fast. But in homes, they did it. In New York City, anything over 100 lineal feet needed a recirc. But the inspectors, it was something new, and they overlooked it for so many years. Now here in Florida, they're really cracking down because it's a tremendous waste of water. So these tankless companies came up. Actually, it was an Australian company that designed it. And what they did was they figured using the piping within the home, you can circulate water through the main trunk line all the way down at the furthest fixture, or a fixture that they use a lot. So it'll recirc through that from the hot into the cold, but at 100 or so degrees, the valve shuts down, and that prevents hot water from getting into the cold pipe, so that when you turn the faucet on, or the faucet next to it, or flush the toilet, you're not getting warm water. And all of this is sensed through the tankless heater, through inside of the unit. There's a sensor in there that actually will register pressure and shut down the pump. And then it goes back to cold. The timer sets to go back on. It'll start recirculating again. So that when the people want to use the water at that farthest fixture, there's warm water there. I mean, one job, I stopped counting at 17 minutes. Think about how much water was dumped down that drain. And that's because they installed the wrong units on a very large home. And I stopped, and the kitchen was 7 minutes. And upstairs bathroom master, I stopped my stopwatch at 17 minutes.
Wow.
So that's a massive amount of water that's being wasted. And that's money.
There's another question here about, there was a great looking Rinnai installation that had great water pressure at the lower level, but the pressure nearly disappeared upstairs. And the owner said it was because it was 20 years old. It said he had been flushed recently. Is there a reason why that might have lost pressure like that?
Yeah. Depending on, like, what I get is I'll go flush a tankless at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. And then 1318 Mockingbird Lane talks to 1313 and says, hey, what'd you have a plumber for? Oh, I had my tankless flushed. Oh, I should get it flushed. And I show up there and I asked them, well, have you ever had this flushed? No. Would you have it installed? 7 years ago. Well, right there, you're going to cause a problem, because when you shut the water off and then turn it back on, you're creating a lot of debris in the system. So when you turn it back on, if you don't flush the system out really, really good, and that's if you can actually shut the valve off, you're sending debris up. Like, since tanklesses has gotten so popular, there's a lot of non-licensed professionals going out, and they start a business called tankless cleaning. And they just charge $200, $150. They go out, they flush these tanklesses. And a lot of times they break valves, they cause the filters to malfunction, they cause the heat exchanger to leak, and then they send debris up. And of course, they call the company like Rinnai or Navion. They call me. I go up and then ask them, I got to be a detective and ask them a lot of questions. And that's the problem. He got it flushed, and he did not reflush the system properly. Debris got either into the cartridge of the shower body or the aerators. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. What's the reasonable time for the hot water to make it to the fixture once you turn it on?
Okay, you should get it if it's just say a large ranch home. You should be getting water to the farthest fixture within 20 to 30 seconds.
Perfect.
In a commercial application, it has to be there within 20 seconds. If it's a school or kindergarten, like a nursery school or something like that, it's got to be there in 15 seconds and a certain temperature, of course. If you're 30, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, that's good. But the average is about 3 to 5 minutes. I have here in Florida, and that's a lot like a large ranch home. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to go with bad installs. If you go into look at an installation, and especially if it's a Rinnai or a Navion, if you see it vented like on the far left with metal vent pipe, and it's been it'll work. It's not going to work correctly, but it'll work. That's not the way it's supposed to be vented. It needs to have the PVC pipe or that concentric vent pipe. Now, if you look at the unit in the center and the unit on the right, only God knows how these guys decided to put this thing in. And we actually, there were photos of before and after. No valve kit on both of them. At least they put a relief valve. If you look on the center picture, bottom left, that's the relief valve. And the other one, there's something there. But if you go and see no valve kit, so going up into it, that means this thing it's never flushed. There's never been maintenance on it, never been flushed. Okay. This happens to be one of my customers. And if you go to look at a tankless heater, and there is that many bushes or branches in front of it, there's a big major problem. So we installed this, cut the bushes. 2 years later, he's got a problem, and that's what I came to. And the center picture is what I ended up cutting with my Sawzall. And you could see, that the bushes, plants, trees, the fluorocarbon, it will get sucked in through the bottom louvers and gets just accumulated in the fan box, the fan, the heat exchanger, and the burner. So all of that had to be taken apart, cleaned, blown out, and put back. So the unit could be working, but if you see that many bushes or something like that in front of an exterior tankless, no matter what it is, there's a problem with that tankless. There should be no bushes in front of it. Okay? All right. So let's see what we got here. All right. We're going to go into rotted piping. As you can see in these photos here, it's electrolysis. You have a problem with dissimilar metals. But there's also another problem. If you look at the tankless, the water heater on the right, that's not a dissimilar metal. What that caused was that the unit was not properly vented out of the roof. And let me get to the water heater pictures here. Okay. So you see, you got a water heater on, actually, we're going to go water heaters, excuse me, not rotted pipe. I'm sorry. Okay, if you see here on the left, we have a standard electric water heater. It's got some braided pipe, new valve, electric, a little softener next to it. On that serial number, you'll see a manufacturer's date. It'll nice and clean with an electric water heater. Unless you do have a dissimilar metal, you're really not going to have a problem with it. But depending on where you are and what the water quality is with the elements and the welds in the elements where most likely they leak, 6 to 10 years, the heater is pretty much on its outs. So now if you look at the center and picture on the right, that's chimney vented through a diverter up through B vent through the chimney. So if the unit has bad venting, So we're going to, that's the picture that you looked at. That picture is a picture that shows what happens when you have carbon monoxide spillage. That was not a water leak. That the carbon monoxide actually caused the electrolysis, because you're getting the higher temperature of carbon monoxide coming back out of the diverter up top. So that little flying saucer thing at the top, that's where the air comes in, meets the carbon monoxide, and then assists it to go out the chimney. When it's either undersized or not properly pitched, you're going to get what they call carbon monoxide spillage. And a water heater is actually going to burn through the top. You'll burn through the piping. Big reason that you actually put metal piping or copper piping or insulate your PEX piping out of a gas water heater, because of the heat from the chimney. And a very easy way to tell if you have a gas water heater, doesn't matter if it's propane or natural, is have some stick matches with you. Light the match when you fire up the water heater, and just put the match underneath that diverter. You can even do it for a boiler. If that match goes out, you have carbon monoxide spillage. And that you can test it. I mean, if you guys carry a CO meter to check it, but a stick match will tell you. Now, as you can see on the left picture, you have what they call atmospheric venting, which means you just have a diverter on the top and a vent piping. So the picture in the center and on the right is the most common venting you're going to find, even with a boiler, is called atmospheric venting. Then the center is what they call power vented. That's basically what a tankless does. There's a fan in there, and that fan assists the venting of the unit. The picture on the right is what they call direct vent. The unit actually has a larger flue passage at the top that you can just bring the vent pipe outside and vent it into the atmosphere instead of going up through a chimney. Now, those units are pretty much gone in the industry, and they didn't last that long even when they were, and that you always seen they had a very large pipe going out, and it most likely could have been either 6 or 7 inch pipe going outside, because they increased the top of the vent discharge. Okay, so that is the 3 type of venting that you will find in regular gas type water heaters. But it's very important to check for that carbon monoxide, you know, for that CO coming out of the unit. Now, let me get to, so the 2 pictures on the left, yes, that is electrolysis. That is dissimilar metals galvanized to copper. And the bottom one is most likely a galvanized female, and they put a male adapter in, and it just, you know, it just rotted away. As you can see on the these backflow preventers, any piping put outside, especially if it's metal, here is required to be painted, and heavily painted at the threads, because the threads are thinner. Now, I know a few states, because I can go to different states with my Florida license, and I have their codes. So and they require that also. Okay, so now we're going to get to, let me just see how many, okay. We're going to get to the venting here now.
Hey, Mike.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry.
No problem. Before you move on,
oh.
Are expansion tanks required for tankless water heaters?
Okay. Depending on the state, yes and no. But depending on the application, yes. And this is what you look for. If the house has a lawn sprinkler system that comes off the water main, and the backflow preventer is either coming up out of the ground, like you've seen in those pictures right there, or you have it's in the basement. There should be there really should be an expansion tank on there because of back pressure that the backflow preventer will do to the system. But if the property has what they call reclaimed water, where it comes in as a separate main, depending on the code, yes and no. It should be required. If with me, if the house has something more than 4 bathrooms, I put an expansion tank on my tanklesses for 4 or more bathrooms. And of course, if the lawn sprinkler system comes off the main. Okay.
Is there a difference between tank type water heater and a tankless water heater as far as that expansion tank being required goes?
Yes, you will definitely need the expansion tank on a tank type water heater. Why? On a tank type heater, you have what they call a temperature and pressure relief valve. So the relief valve actually activates under temperature, and pressure will open and relieve itself. On the pictures you see here, a boiler or a tankless heater, you only are required to have a pressure relief valve. So on a water heater, especially with a backflow preventer, and I can't tell you how many hundreds of relief valves I had to go and replace in New York, is that you get the water heater acts as the expansion tank, and it puts that excessive pressure on the relief valve, and the relief valve eventually becomes worn out and starts to leak. So we end up putting a new relief valve and an expansion tank on. It also has done a lot of damage to the water heater because that is actually, it's like a balloon blowing something in, it expands, then it retracts, then it expands, then it retracts. Microscopically, but they're glass lined. And that glass will fracture. Then the water eats at the tank leaks, and you might have taken 2 or so years off of the life of the water heater.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. Now, you're going in to look at boilers. All right, so we got the boiler on the left is a standard steam boiler. You could tell because it has a glass gauge. It has some type of way to see how much water is in it. Now, the boiler third picture from the right is a hot water boiler. It's power vented. You could tell by the circulating pumps. And there is no sight glass. So the difference between steam, you got the sight glass. Of course, the controls are different. And you have no glass gauge for a steam boiler. So you have a low water cutoff, which is the black box. You have a pressure control and a pressure gauge. That's coming off that little, what they call a pigtail. So you don't get direct pressure from the boiler, steam pressure. Your relief valve, they're set at 15 pounds. Then your vent damper, and that's where the chimney pipe will go on and go out. Basically, the vent damper closes. It keeps the heat from the pilot inside, keeps the heat when the boiler shuts down. It keeps the heat of the boiler inside and doesn't let it go out the chimney. Did it work? I say yes and no. I put that second picture to the right because that's an old, actually coal boiler, most likely converted to oil, and then it's actually a gas gun in there. All right, the third picture from the right will be some type of hot water boiler, high efficient. It looks like a Munchkin. It has a Weil McLean indirect fired storage tank. So that tan with black top is actually a water heater. And that tank there probably could do close to 7 bathrooms. It's that efficient. And then the pump systems piping that sends the heat up, probably up to air handlers or maybe some radiant to heat the home. Now, the picture that actually says boilers, so far right top picture, that is actually a combi boiler. That is a tankless heater that's also a boiler. So when you go to look at something like this, you're actually going to see 2 cold water feeds and 2 hot water outlets. Of course, gas, there's going to be a condensate drain. Someone that has installed that system pretty much knows what they're doing. You're going to find everything that I'm saying. It's just not some fly-by-night that they hired to put it in, because it's not a cheap system. So that is used to heat the home and heat the hot water. Now, there's a tank next to it. Most likely, this is a very large home, and it needed extra storage to provide for maybe a massive bathtub, like something that requires 16 gallons a minute. So you would need like 2 or 3 of these boiler units down there. So that's why you might see some type of a storage tank that has a pump that will pump in and give that building or home greater hot water. Now, the picture down at the bottom is an oil-fired boiler, and it is a hot water boiler. It's now those boilers now are also going to require what they call a low water cutoff. So that black box in the upper left-hand corner was always required for steam boilers, but now pretty much all over the United States, they require a low water cutoff on the hot water boilers, because if they drain down because of a broken or frozen pipe that breaks and leaks, the boiler will shut off, not dry fire, and actually with an oil boiler can cause a fire. So you need to, and there's always a test button on them. There's always a test button. So you have a McDonnell Miller one here. There's a red button, and then you have a safeguard low water cutoff, that blue one on the bottom right hand, and there's actually a rocker switch on them. And then there's ones that almost look like a shotgun shell that go into the main about 3-4 feet off the ground. And those you're required to remove, just push the tab and remove the electrical wire. And then that will automatically shut the boiler down. And then that means that if it loses water, the boiler will shut down. Okay? So we're going to go to the chimney venting. So now, when you go to look at these boilers or water heaters, and depending on the age of the home, you're most likely going to see some corrugated pipe coming out of either the concrete wall, the brick wall, where the chimney is. Basically, all throughout the United States, you need to line a chimney. Why? You have brick chimneys. They had most likely either coal or oil in them. And through the years, that, especially oil dust, accumulates on the liner, on the brick, and between moisture, rain, difference in temperature, humidity, it causes a chemical reaction and actually eats through the mortar that is holding the brick together. When that happens, chimney effect with a chimney, basically the air goes down the side of the liner. So the right picture, you have 2 chimneys there. One is the boiler chimney and water heater. The other one most likely is a fireplace. And the little piece coming up is a liner. Air goes down the end of the liner, mates to the bottom of the chimney, goes up with the carbon monoxide and assists the carbon monoxide from going out. On an oil boiler, it's got a fan. It's like almost a power burner, but on a gas burner, it's atmospheric. It relies on the air from the diverter and the chimney effect. But through the years, the chimneys are deteriorating. It's not like they're going to fall down. They just get these microscopic holes in the concrete mortar and now gets impinged in there and it doesn't work. So they basically now require a chimney liner. So when you get to the job site, and if you look at the far right picture, that is the kit. It's roughly, well, you can get them in different lengths, but it's 30 feet of a stainless steel corrugated, almost like a dryer vent. You have a chimney cap with a plate and then adapter fittings at the bottom. You go in there, they tie on a rope with a weight, they push it down the chimney, they pull that thing down. You got the cap, they seal it nice and nice, no rain. Then at the bottom, you're always going to see some of that corrugation coming out with a stainless steel adapter and then either the boiler or a Y fitting for the boiler and water heater. You see that stainless steel corrugation coming out of the concrete wall or the brick, the chimney was lined. If you don't see it, and there's a fairly new boiler or water heater in there, there's a little bit of a problem with the chimney. And the reason that you need to see some of this, and they'll look up at that, because when the inspector comes to inspect the job, when you file your permit, if they file the permit, needs to see what's coming out and needs to see what's at the roof. Okay? So that's basically the chimney liner. And the center picture with the red going through, that is a back pitched flue. So if you see that on either a water heater or boiler going into the chimney and it's going downhill like a sewer pipe, bad, because you're getting carbon monoxide spillage.
Hey, Mike.
All right? Yes.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Question: gas furnace and water heater vents better at a T or a Y connection? Is there a code related to that?
Y connection. You want the gases to be meeting like you're a railroad train going onto another track. Same with the sewer. Y connections. T's were allowed for like a furnace and a water heater, and I bet you, I know what the gentleman who asked or lady has asked. They have a T connection going vertical. They have the water heater going into the bull part of the T and the furnace going into the run. I see it all the time. Yes, that was allowed, but now, no. A Y connection. A Y should have been done with a Y. You want the gases to meet. Now, here's another thing to look at. You have a furnace that has 4-inch pipe. You have a water heater that has 4-inch pipe. That's 8 inches of total circumference. The pipe going through the ceiling, going through the roof, if it's the same size as the water heater and the furnace, Bob's not your uncle on that one. That's not working right. It should be at least 6-inch pipe. So it needs to be at least 2 times larger than the largest pipe. That is a basic rule of thumb.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Yes.
All right.
One other thing, with all this moving to PVC vents and stuff like that, we're seeing a lot of orphaned water heaters. Can you?
I'm sorry, you broke up there. Are you seeing a lot of what?
Orphaned water heaters, where it's the water heater is the only appliance using the flue because the furnace or the boiler got taken out and transferred to a high efficiency thing.
Yeah, that should well, so a lot of these things are grandfathered in. So they're not required to, if the water heater is often there, it's staying there. The best thing to do is fire it up and do the match trick. See if the flame of the match, don't use a lighter because it's power. Use a match. And if you see the flame going up, nice, then it's working. If the flame is flickering back to you or goes right out, you have a carbon monoxide problem. See, a lot of states, they're not going to force you, oh, you put a furnace in or a new boiler, but the water heater is now in the chimney. they're not going to, it's like your grandfather did. So the best test would be just to see how the flue, and look at the top of the water heater. If you see a lot of burn, brown, gray, black, the pipes are bad, that indicates that you've got a massive flue spillage coming from that vent. You don't even need to check with a match, but it's always good. Like I said, the match is the best thing. And then if you ladies and gentlemen do carry a CO detector, or even a gas detector, it's like a simple gas detector will register it. You know, you could take your readings from those diverters. Okay. All right. Grounding of gas piping. This is probably the most important thing in a house that you're going to look for. Why? Because it can cause a fire, a real bad fire. All right. Lightning basically starts from the ground and then goes up, but it tentacles for like a mile or better when this happens. Now, every single place in this world has lightning. Here in Florida, we happen to have a lot more. And as you can see on these photos right here, this is what happens to piping. It doesn't matter if it's track pipe on the left, if it's a flexible pipe, center and right, if it's metal pipe, you need to see, and as you can see in that picture, coming out of the meter. Now, you can find a gas meter pretty much anywhere for natural gas or propane. Now, where I live, I have tanks on my block. I have a meter outside my house, but it's a basic meter. For natural gas, you're going to see a much more elaborate setup, and the meter most likely will be from the manufacturer embossed with the name of the gas company. Propane company, they'll just throw a waterproof sticker on it, and that's it. But coming up out of the outlet side of the meter, so look at the picture down where it says bonding CSST gas line. When you come up out of the meter, before it goes in the house, you must find one of those copper ground clamps. Not an aluminum one, copper. And the piping should be like when we finish the gas lines and we're required to paint our gas piping gray, yellow for commercial, we actually provide a piece of tape around the area with a sign that says electrician ground here. Then you'll take the tape off and put his ground on it because you want a nice clean pipe. And what happens is that these lightning strikes find metal piping, and this gas piping, especially the CSST, which is actually track pipe, will actually pit it even though it's stainless steel. And as you can see in those pictures there, that is a hole, look at that, it looks like a drilled hole, but that is just burned, as you can see from it, a lightning strike. So that was with the coating on it, the original coating, and the CSST was used by track pipe pretty much 80% throughout the United States, and then other companies. But it was all basically made the same, pretty much approved by all the building departments and thrown through these homes. So that's what happens. The picture in the center and on the right, that is actually also what lightning strikes will do to a stainless steel with aluminum connectors. And I get these calls all the time. I smell gas, and that is what you find. As you can see, the piping is painted. There is a little rot around, or a little bit of rot around the joint. That person didn't paint it so good, but that gas flex has been destroyed by the lightning. So if you look here on the left bottom picture, that's called counter-strike track pipe. So if you go and look and you see that gas piping coming down the wall in the mechanical room or somewhere in a closet, it's black, track pipe patented a shielding that basically deflects, but it's not preventing you from grounding the gas line. So anywhere, pretty much in every state, you are required to ground the gas piping. And it is like one of the main things the inspectors come and look at when they come to do the final. They run right over to the gas line to look at that. Because and I can tell you this, I'm an ex-fire chief from Long Island, and we've had some gas fires, and that is a very important thing to have your gas piping ground and at least put on right where the gas line is entering the building. Now, on some applications, you're going to have a propane tank either in the ground or next to the building. There's a copper line or a poly line in the ground, and it comes up to a regulator, and then it reduces down to pipe or maybe track pipe and goes into the house. That needs to be grounded right there at the regulator. So whenever it's going in, that has to be grounded to protect the piping. It could be metal, it could be that track pipe. In some cases here, we can use copper flad. It will pit it and cause a major gas leak inside the home or structure.
Hey, Mike. Is there a requirement that the black pipe is grounded? Really, the word is bonded, right?
Yes, it's a bond. It's bounded back to the neutral bar. We used to be able to drive a copper ground rod, 6-foot copper ground rod like you find at the panel, into the ground, and then put a ground clamp on that, a piece of number 8, uncoated, back up to the gas line and ground it. Well, no, because that's where the lightning starts. The fingers get to it. It did nothing. So the code was changed a few years ago that you have to go back to the neutral bar, not the ground bar. And if you look now at this picture, which is actually part of Regulators, but if you look at the right picture, there's a bond, but it's heavily painted because they, of course, do it after they go to paint the house. But that's what it's supposed to look like right there. That bond, that's where. Now, if you look at the bottom picture, there's no bond. That's what I was explaining. Propane tank somewhere in the yard or next to the home, a gas line under the ground up, and then there's no bond anywhere on that regulator.
Does the black iron pipe need to be bonded like the track pipe and that kind of stuff?
Everything. Most of the time, the installer will put black iron pipe through the wall in the home and a piece of black iron pipe up the interior, which is an exterior wall of the house, of course, before, when the house is still studded. But then in the ceiling, he runs the track pipe, like you would be running BX wire over to the stove, the dryer, the fireplace. But the reason that we put metal pipe in the wall is when they're putting the drywall up, hanging pictures, nails, track pipe goes in real easy. It'll still, things will go through metal pipe, but it's a lot harder. So that's why we run metal up. So there is a bit of metal inside of these homes, but a lot of times they make track pipe adapters that will angle up and you can have track pipe inside, but there's all special. The nail plates for track pipe will stop a 38 caliber bullet. A regular nail plate, you could probably drive a screw through it, but a track pipe nail plate will stop a 38 caliber bullet. But yes, everything needs to be grounded. There needs to be a bond put on the gas line. And if there's some homes might have like gas going from one side of the house to the other, there should be a bond on both sides. So if you go to a home, a large home, and there's a tankless on the right and a tankless on the left, both of those gas lines should be bonded. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Now, the next thing you're going to find that also going to cause a lot of heartache is regulators. Now, as you can see in these photos, you have basically two different type of regulators. The regulator on the far left, that happens to be, it's called a pietroflorentine. It has that little lower green cap as a rain head. These regulators don't need to be vented. All of these regulators, no matter what size they are and what poundage use, they're all identically looking. But they can only be put in the horizontal or the vertical position. So it could, that black regulator or brown regulator down in the center, that's right, it's called the back mount. But the regulator on the right, it's not working properly. So if you see regulators, any regulators that are not either in the horizontal or vertical position, that should be noted. There's a problem there. That regulator is not working correctly. Now, on certain regulators, as you can see in the center picture, the drawing, you have vents that come off of it. And then the lower picture, you have, the feed is the center pipe. The other pipe is the outlet, the low pressure. The front yellow pipe is the vent. If a regulator that actually has a large hole or a large screen in it needs to be put, and this is pretty much everywhere in the United States, it has to be 10 feet. That vent needs to go away. So if the regulator is within 10 feet of a source of ignition, electrical panel, air condition, some type of panel or wiring, tankless heater, pool pump, has to be 10 feet away or 5 feet away from a window. So, but these Pietros, if you see that little green cap, that actually is designed differently where it could be left near a source of ignition. Okay. What are we up to? All right, so we got that, we got rotted pipe, chimneys. Okay, water softeners. You're going to find basically there's really two different water softeners out there. There's the salt type center, and then there's the non-salt type, which really is not a water softener, it's a water conditioner. So if you look at the center picture, that is a softener that has a brine tank and then a salt tank. Now, all three of them are my jobs, and they're actually, the center one is not my installation, but the one on the left and the one on the right is. But we actually moved the tank to get the tankless in. You have a salt tank. If you remove that top, and if you see that that tank is anywhere from half to 3/4 filled with water and maybe a tad of salt, there's a major problem with the softener. You don't even have to continue on, because it means that the people have not continually put salt in, have not watched it, and they have caused a malfunction between the brine tank and the salt tank. And that salt tank now, instead of putting a little bit of water in and drawing the salt out, has kind of ruptured, and it now just, but there's actually a toilet float in there, a toilet fill valve in there. And when the water reaches a certain level, it shuts down. So that the tank's not overflowing, but if you see a good amount of water in that tank, that means that that system has been not maintained and in very poor condition. Let me get to, oh, sorry about new computer. All right, now here's some more pictures. Now we have here, the center picture is actually a salt tank and a brine tank water softener. If you see them outside, they could be working, but a lot of critters get in them and die. So it's not really good to have a salt tank outside. One of the, which is Pelican Pentair, which is the one on the left and the right, they can go, anything that's not a salt tank where nothing could get in the system, that's very good. But we find a lot of these out there that are outside, but you're getting a lot of, critters in there that are dying, and there's a lot of debris because the salt tanks, you just put down and it turns, things still get in there. All right, so now the
Hey, Mike.
let's get, yes.
Should a proper functioning water softener be able to remove all iron such that yellow discoloration does not develop in the plumbing fixtures?
Okay, if it was installed, well, I could tell you right now, the system on the right removes iron, lead, black sand, induces a little bit of chlorine in because it's a well system. But if these softeners are installed, so the system on the left, that is a brand new home, probably, the home is about 6 months old. And we actually put the tankless and that softener in. If that softener is installed during day one, or maybe 2-3 months after the people, 4 months after they move in, yes, a good softener, like you find either on the left or the right, will prevent that yellow discoloration, calcium buildup, the shower heads from clogging, very bad water pressure, the white that you see around the aerators, even around the faucet spouts. But if it's installed 10 years, there's a massive amount of damage done by the quality of, like here, the water is really bad. It just destroys stuff within a year. So it depends on the quality of the water, area you're in, and when the softener was installed.
Thanks. We got about 15 minutes left.
Okay. Now, the softeners that you see on the left, and then the softener, hey, I pressed the right button. The softeners on the left and right, those are what they basically call maintenance-free softeners. So water comes in, you're going to see a main filter. And if we go back to the blue one here, you have an inlet and an outlet filter. And then it goes into a whole house filter, then through a softener alternative, they call it, then back into the home. And all the people need to do is to change that filter in the blue canister, or that dark blue canister, every, depending on how many people in the house, how many bathrooms, can be anywhere from 3 to 5 months. They just change out this roll of yarn, I call it. And hopefully they kept the track of it. But those systems, no electric, no water runoff, no salt, they're, like I said, they're a water conditioner. But on a new install, the picture on the left, we actually just commissioned the house. They totally renovated it. So that's going to protect all the fixtures in that home because it's brand new. The picture on the right, again, brand new system. So that, as long as he's changing that filter, he's going to keep his fixtures in good working order.
Hey, Mike.
Okay. Yes.
What is the cost for an average filtration drinking water system in most homes in Florida? Do you personally drink Florida water?
No, I do not. Most people, it's probably about $100 every 2 months, $125. I personally pay for a charcoal filter for my refrigerator. And the water still doesn't taste, as good. And I'm from New York, and New York had very good water. We brush our teeth with it, spaghetti boils, but ice and water. Now, people, a friend of mine installs Hager water filters. They're a German company. $8,000 to $12,000 the filter cost. The system, the pictures you're looking at now, those system to buy, and it's Pentair. They bought them out. And they're from Florida. This was Pelican. And it's a very good system. The system, depending on, let's see, the system on the left is, if it's on sale, $2,000. The system on the right is $2,500. System on the left does 1 to 3 bathrooms. System on the right does 4 to 6 bathrooms. The blue filter will do 6 bathrooms, and the filter on the right is just bad well water.
Hey, Mike, what
Yes.
what components in the filtration systems will deal with manganese?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not that I couldn't answer. I don't service the filters. Like the picture on the center, I don't, unless it's a broken pipe, I don't service them. I only install the Pelican. The homeowner bought this blue one. It was called Blue Rhino. But I'm not sure of that question because I really don't service. But if I was to guess, it would be a separate tank like the filter on the right. As you can see, it's a Pentair system. It's a black sand system, 2 different filters, UV light, and a chlorine pump. So that's what's set up by the actual engineer, and then we just got a drawing and installed it the way the homeowner wanted it and the room that we had there.
Okay. Is it a good idea to have a water softener for a tankless? And if so, what would you suggest?
Well, I suggest this when they ask, I suggest this Pentair system. And why? One is it does very good justice to the tankless. And a lot of my installs are a softener. And this right here, this picture on the left, there's a tankless on the other wall. So we install this and the tankless, and it does really good justice to it. You still need to service it, and it doesn't matter even if you had the $12,000 Hager system. You still need to service a tankless. But that Pelican system, for the price, well, what it does is, in my opinion, the best system to have for a tankless and the whole house.
Excellent.
The remaining time, do you want to just do questions?
I've got one question I've been waiting on. Can you give a useful life of the different types of water heaters, and also with and without service, how much that's going to affect the useful life of those water heaters?
Like tank type or tankless or both?
Both.
Okay. All right. Well, it all depends on water. It all depends on where you are. In New York, a water heater could last 40 years. I've had water heaters here in Florida, 30 years old, but they were much older, made differently. Depending on the water quality, the average life of a tankless, of a water heater is 6 to 10 years. You could get a little longer out of it, but nowadays they actually go more for the efficiency, so the insulation, than what they put inside the tank. So on a water heater with actually no maintenance, so you're not draining it, because remember, you need to drain a water heater. You should, from the beginning, they put a hose on and actually drain the sediment out. Why? Because you have the sediment builds at the bottom of the tank. Now the flame heats the metal, heats the sediment to heat the water. You remove that sediment, you remove one of the middlemen, and you save money, and it lengthens the life of that tank type heater. Now with a tankless, it depends on the water and the tankless. If you don't service a tankless, like I'm going to go, Renai has on their RL series or V series have a copper heat exchanger. On their RU and RUR, it's stainless steel. Navion, on every one of their units, no matter if it's their non-condenser or condensing, have complete stainless steel heat exchanger. So that will last a little bit longer than the copper, but without maintenance, and as you remember from that picture with the filter, without maintenance, maybe 5 years, and it doesn't matter water quality. It's just the minerals will, you know, the copper heat exchangers are much thinner. Even the stainless steel are much thinner, and without a proper service, 5, 6 years, maybe complete failure within 7. If you service a tankless religiously every year, flush it out. A lot of people on my channel, when after an install I do over my channel, their homeowners, they did it, do it twice a year, like I do it. You'll get 20 years out of a tankless. If there's no manufacturer's defect in any of the things I'm talking about, you'll get 20 years out of a tankless heater without blinking an eye, either an eye or Navion. Did that answer the question?
I think so. I think so.
Okay. Everything that you install. Now, you know, I wanted to just say something. A lot of this stuff is brand spanking new. And I have taught 3 different counties. I've gone to building departments with my mock-ups and have taught the building inspectors. Or I have stayed longer on a job for an inspector to ask me questions. Or even down in Orlando, I went to do off my channel. The inspectors, it's like they're infants to this new technology. So you guys and ladies, going to the homes, you're actually following up on the inspector. And by me telling you this, now you actually can now advise the new home or the person, you know, you could just be inspecting a home, not even for a sale. You're advising them what the inspector just overlooked because he just didn't know it. So after my first talk, when I did the thing a few months ago, I went back to myself, wow, I said, you know, they're really looking at, you know, what inspectors overlook. And they overlook them because they just don't know it. Like with the PVC venting, they don't realize that it's got to be pressure. They just say, oh, let me see the spec, pressure. They don't read down, it's got to say pressure. They say, oh, PVC 2-inch, I see 2-inch. Okay, good. They walk away. The no condensate pipe. I had a job, they had no condensate pipe. The condensate leaked all over the regulator and the electrical box. And they called me because the unit wasn't working. The unit wasn't working because the regulator had so much condensate corrosion. And as you know, condensate is caustic, it's acidic. It just rotted the regulator out. And I had to swap out a regulator. And it was all because they did not have a pipe to drain the condensate to the ground. And the inspector, house was five years old, maybe 4. And, you know, it was built. An inspector from the county had to come and do all his inspections. He just didn't realize it and overlooked it.
So what should we look for in the tankless water heaters that's going to indicate that the tankless is failing?
Well, for starters, that discoloration, that's a given. There's no valve kit underneath the tankless, so let me nope. So on the bottom there, you have 2 valves. And those 2 valves, you're going to have all of the tankless service kits have a blue handle on the cold, a red handle on the hot, and then 2 like almost hose ports. If you don't see them, like that, those 2 units right there, just pipe and maybe a valve. That means that that thing was never, ever, ever, ever serviced. And then ask the homeowner, or if someone knows, or maybe there is an affixed sticker, like we do. We stick something and write down the date we were there, and initial. Me, my son, my workers, they just initial that they did the tankless service. Also, you can see when you go to test for hot water, see the pressure coming out. Like, go to the different fixtures. If every fixture in the house has like little less pressure than the cold, that could mean that the tankless heater was not serviced. You could have the filter clogged, like the left there, where this was a restaurant and they got no water through that, so they had trickles of hot water coming out. So if you have a reduced pressure in your hot water, but it's throughout the whole house, most likely it's not a clogged aerator or a clogged shower head. It's the tankless has not been serviced. So that's kind of what you can look for.
Okay. Cool. Last question.
Sure.
Have you noticed any recent spikes in water heater prices due to supply chain issues?
Yes. I'm laughing at that. Yes. One tankless company 2 times already has raised their price. The other tankless company has not. Water heaters, I do keep 50 gallons, natural, and 50-gallon propane and an electric in stock. They have gone up probably about 4%, and material in general has gone up 10% or 12%. But yeah, they have gone up.
Okay.
They have gone up.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing. Quick 10-second response. How easy is it for us to see that filter? Can we take that off during an inspection?
No.
Okay.
No. It's actually, I had somebody actually invent a removal tool. You can go on my site and look. And then he gave me the patent, and I sell them on my channel to remove it. But if it hasn't been removed in like 2 years, no. Plus,
Okay.
you're chancing for breaking the inlet water valve if it's a real cheap inlet valve, the valve kit. If it's very cheap, you most likely could try to turn it. It either break in the closed position or just break off and flow water. So it would be something I would not advise you to be touching.
Okay, awesome. Well, that was a great presentation, Mike. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. I really feel bad for the guys who have to install water heaters hanging on a wall like that. I mean, it's a real tankless job, don't you think? I can hear you laughing. I can hear you laughing. All right.
Yes,
all right. Well, thanks a lot, Mike. We really appreciate you.
no problem. It was a pleasure.